almost unsurvivable sounds like there was a breaking point.
My biggest concern was history repeating itself.
You've said some pretty shocking things here. Wait, hold up, wait a minute.
You know, for me, I'm just really relieved and happy to be sitting here talking to you with my wife by my side. Because I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like for her going through this process by herself all those years ago, because it has been unbelievably tough for the two of us, but at least we had each other.
Right. Gosh, right. Let's just talk production value first, because in that 30 seconds, I went through a lot of emotions. There was suspense. There was a peroration at the end. There was scandal. I mean, can we just say and just applaud Oprah's ability to just turn the most simple things like a sit-down conversation into a whole thing, right? But let's get takes on this, because that 30 seconds, it really rubbed people different ways. Some people loved it, some people loathed it. Let's start with Busayo, who has been on the podcast before. She all things campaign, all things policy. She was, and I think still is, a social action youth worker. Let's bring her in and just ask first and foremost, Busayo, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me.
All good. When you saw that interview or that trailer, what's going through your mind?
A part of me is, it's good to see them speak on it, because a lot of the times when we hear about what's happening, it's in writing. So we don't know whether she said something and how upset she was or etc. But also their chemistry, I think we haven't really seen how they are as husband and wife as well. So we imagine a few things, but you know what I mean? It makes them, it humanizes them, which is really good. But I think it's also really sad that it's got to this point. Something that we all expect, we all anticipate, like when you marry into a royal family of the British institution, we anticipated it. But it is still sad that under all of that, they're still human beings and they're still going to be affected by things that any marriage will be rocked by. So I guess it's good to see they're still together, and it's not a case of this is a divorce and, you know, she's revealing what happened under her thing, but they're together. But it's sad because it's a marriage, it's real people. So yeah.
I think obviously so much has happened. I think as a country, we all need to take a collective deep breath, because you'll remember only a few years ago, even Republicans who hated the royal family, during that wedding, we were all just celebrating, because it was like love wins, and there was that pastor at the thing that gave the really long speech, you know, so
Pentecostal speech.
You know, and now from that to where we are now, where unfortunately, as you said, this isn't a positive thing we're talking about here. This is people talking about pain, real, actual pain. I want to get Matt's thought. Matt's a contributor here at Common Sense. Matt, watching that, 30 seconds again, how did it feel for you? What's going through your mind?
What's the betting that nothing controversial comes out in this interview? What's the betting that all of this hype is built up, as American TV tends to do, and absolutely nothing controversial happens? I could very easily see this just being a piece of PR and them not really shedding any light on any trauma or anything that the royal family's done to them or anything the media's done to them. I could just see it as a really cushy PR piece. But at the same time, if they've got something to say, then this is the place to say it, isn't it? Because there's so many eyes on them now.
Literally. I mean, it's interesting you say that, because in that trailer, I think the only thing Meghan Markle said was, yeah. And that's it. But the Twitter threads and opinion pieces I've seen about what she said and how, she's just so this and she's so that. And you go, well, nothing's happened. So a part of me thinks, even if there is nothing controversial said, do you think the British media, I mean, you can see them going, well, it was interesting and that's kind of it.
No, you're right. They're bound to whip up something out there, aren't they?
But also, I think people shouldn't downplay, like, if you've been in those situations, downplay, like, the non-verbal communication. Like, I know a lot of Black women or anyone who's been in a situation where they feel targeted can be like, what she's saying isn't what she's saying through her mouth. It's her body language. It's the fact that she's a project. I mean, so there's a lot of things that different cultures and different people see different things. So I hear her say nothing, but at the same time, she's shouting. She's saying, yo, I'm not going to lie, sis. This place was mad. Other people like, she didn't say that. So you got to be careful. Do you know what I mean? We've got to really see, actually, depending on who you are, you're going to have a different kind of interpretation of what's happened there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned America before, Messiah, and I think that's a wish word for our American correspondent Siobhan, who I'm going to get on now because she's in America, she's American, she's observing the story through a different lens. I just wonder, Siobhan, when you look at again those 30 seconds, that's all we have to go on now. What do you see? Are you kind of like, yeah, this is standard Oprah, or is there something else happening here?
First off, you will not do standard Oprah anything. Do not disrespect Oprah in that manner. That's what you won't do. But no, Loads of Keys, that's how Oprah got her claim to fame, was the suspense. Like when she interviewed the Kardashians, and it was like, oh my God, how did they feel about the coming out of Bruce Jenner, who's now Caitlyn? Oh my God, that's just basic Oprah. But yeah, but at the same time, one thing that Oprah's key at, you get a lot by nonverbals, even if you can't say anything. And I honestly don't think that you're going to get a heck of a lot out of this interview, but look at their nonverbals. That may be more words than you really need to know.
Yeah. Well, of course, we've already seen Harry give an interview to James Corden, who, again, British, but now is in America and runs or is the host of the Daily Show, I think, or the Late Show.
The late show.
That's the one. The late.
Yeah.
I wonder who came up with that. See people in the Brennan meeting. There's already the Late Show. Let's just add a late, So he's at the late show. Now that already caused a stir, and I'm going to bring on our two final guests to get their impressions on that before we get deep into the story. So Hamish, Aaron, welcome to both of you guys. Did you get a chance to watch the Prince Harry and James Corden kind of interview / they also did an obstacle course as well, I remember. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on this story before we get into some of the moving parts?
So my thoughts on that, I think the James Corden one, I didn't really go into it that much, but I have seen reaction for it and a lot of negative press on it. And I mean, I think it's interesting. What I find really interesting is the fact that Prince Harry has to go over to US to actually get coverage and actually talk about it. Not in the British press, which I find quite interesting. The fact he has to fly all the way over to the US to actually get it, I find quite interesting. And then just kind of touching on the whole kind of teaser thing, I think the one thing that hasn't really been mentioned just yet, I do feel like the timing of it is pretty bad. And that I will say is because of what's going on with Prince Philip and the fact that he's very, very unwell and he potentially might die. And I find that's quite a big disservice to him. And I find that I don't know if news organizations are going to delay the interview, but I do think, in my personal opinion, I think it's a big disservice the fact that Harry and Meghan are kind of taking the media spotlight and putting on them, whereas I think they should put the media spotlight on Philip and how he's being very unwell right now. That's how I kind of view the whole kind of story. That's why I'm kind of a bit annoyed by it. But I'm open to other people's opinions on that.
I have no doubt folks have opinions about that.
Yeah.
So give it a few minutes. But what about you, Aaron? Go ahead.
Following on what Hamish said about the timing of it is terrible. Is it any wonder then why people think Meghan Markle is so full of herself and full of rubbish? Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have effectively tried to privatize the monarchy. They talk about how they want privacy and this, that, the other. But then they sign multi-million-pound deals with Oprah and Spotify and all these other companies. So it's less to do with privacy and more to do with controlling who they want in their lives. They basically want to have their cake and eat it. And it's disgusting timing, especially that Prince Philip is on his way out. I mean, with respect to Prince Philip, he's on borrowed time anyway. But he's on his way out, and the media is still on them. So no wonder people are going to attack Meghan Markle and think that she's full of it. Because you can't really have it both ways, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. So I was going to take us somewhere else, but we should probably park the bus there and just talk about what you said for a minute. I mean, who has thoughts? He wants to kind of respond to that, or does anyone think to what Mish and Aaron have said? Go on, Siobhan.
First off, you cannot. Death comes, it's not a timing for death. It wasn't their choice to be like, I'm going to talk about myself. And then your almost 100-year-old grandfather is about to die. That's not their fault. And I think that And the thing that irritates me about the media, both the US and the UK, when it comes to them, is at the end of the day, they are humans. These are real people with real issues, regardless if they are royalty or not. They have same issues just like you and I. So
They're not just humans, though, are they?
really, but
They have certain positions.
Born into this.
Well, it's too bad, isn't it?
Go ahead, Aaron. Also, Siobhan, we can't quite hear you. Is there any way we can get your audio to go up a bit higher? Aaron, go ahead.
I was going to respond to what Siobhan said. They're human beings, yes, but so am I, so are they in this chat. That's not the point here. They hold certain positions, which means that there are certain responsibilities and things that are going to be expected of them. They're not just normal, regular human beings who are not in the public eye. Prince Harry was born into the monarchy and the Queen and this, and Meghan Markle is with respect to her, a B-list celebrity. Of course, they're going to be in the public eye. Of course, more things are going to be expected of them. They can't pick and choose when they want privacy and when they don't want it.
To whose standards? But to whose standards?
To the press's standards. That's how it is. When you're famous, when you're in the public eye, you don't get to pick and choose when. No. They want to have their cake and eat it. I'm sorry.
Hold on 1 minute. Let's bring in Basayo, and then we'll.
Sorry. Is it Aaron? Sorry, the argument doesn't really stand because you're saying that it's free game for everyone, right? At that point. So then if they're going to now, using your words, privatize it, then what is your upset with that? Because if they are more than human, as you said, these are superhuman people, then therefore they let them use their superhuman powers to protect them, just like we would do if we were superhuman. So let's not mistake our lack of access to Oprah as a way to say we have different morals to them, because at the end of the day, the same way they are, part of the royal family, that's the targets on their back aren't the targets on our back. Listen, if you break up with your wife, I'm telling you, no one's looking for you, bro. Or if you break up with your husband, no one's looking for you. No one's going to be writing a story about you. You better hope that someone in your family even cares and shows up to the court. But for these people, they're also public property as well. So you've got to think about what they're not, do you know what I mean? You have to think a bit higher and be like, actually, what could they be up against? Not what we're up against. So sometimes I feel like, you just have to kind of figure out your argument holds, but it still holds for what Siobhan is saying as well. So then where do we go from here?
Who actually feels sorry for millionaires who funded by the taxpayer?
No one said feel sorry for them.
There needs to be a line, though. There needs to be a line.
No one said feel sorry for them.
We're talking about not being human. We're saying they're human and this and that.
Let's trying to humanize them real quickly.
I think there needs to be. The thing is, right? There needs to be a line. I understand to an extent what Aaron is trying to say, but I think there needs to be a line. Like you can't just, as much as yes, whatever you say will get criticized. Yes, but the media can't just, the media press on Meghan was too much. It was way, way, way too much. And then you compare that with Kate, the other royal. It's a massive difference. So I think there needs to be, a fine line of saying, right, what is allowed and what's not allowed. Because I think the media does push up beyond the line, and that's what I think a lot of people are arguing against, or why, on that sense. That's what
you know what's pretty interesting to me, just observing the story, is the fact that, let's be quite frank, there are some people in the UK who hate this woman. No doubt about it. And for that reason, whatever she does, they see through that veneer of hate. Full stop. So, and we parody it, don't we? Sometimes, because you could see those two newspaper front pages where it had, Meghan holding an avocado, someone else holding an avocado, Meghan likes avocados. The same thing's true on Twitter today. When I read someone's master plan, folks, here's what the person said. The person said, what Meghan is trying to do here is, 1, destroy the royal family. 2, go to America and build a public profile. 3, start to speak about American politics. 4, then run for president. And then 5, become the first black president of the US. And I thought to myself, this is actually insane. Because then someone sat down, and because they hate her so much, they've invented this life or this plan that she has, and they believe it. And they had hundreds of retweets, and I thought, this is ridiculous. So when I say that to say, Aaron, not to pick on you, but since you've said what you said, I mean, do you concede, however, that maybe it's, say, the hate you have, or the dislike or the disdain, whatever you have for the kind of celebrity culture and what's happened in the royal family, that's kind of following into this interview she's given, or do you think it's actually something else?
It's a bit of both. I mean, personally, I don't really have much time for Meghan Markle. At the same time, I also have a life. I'm not going to sit down and plot and plan and organize this kind of some kind of ridiculous false narrative for Meghan Markle's apparent plan of world domination. I have a life.
That's what you're doing.
I'm not doing that at all.
You are. The thing is, for me, my issue with the whole thing about Meghan is that it's just, I'm not really a follower of anyone. I'm not like a stan of anyone. So I'm not really passionate about certain people generally. So you're saying that you don't sit around, but the passion you're using to draw a picture of her it looks like someone who has stalked her at least a bit to know that actually this is what this person is capable of. So my thing is that if you say you don't like her, do you know her? Not to like her, or what has she shown you? Not what you've read through the mail that she's shown you that it's like, oh, she's done to, because that's what my confusion is. I don't mind people not liking her. I don't know her. But for you to be so passionate and go, this is her plan, where were you in her decision-making processes? Maybe that will help me kind of clear up this. And I'll be like, you know what, he's heard this. But it's confusing to me how you can have such an opinion on someone you don't know. Same way, so it's awkward.
Again, but did anyone apart from people who are close to her know her very well? I can only go by by her behavior. Do you know her? Does Michael know her? Does Hamish know her?
Well, actually, folks, one thing that's come up, and I would love to get Matt to chime in here because this is quite interesting to us. A lot of us do love, the picture we see of Meghan Markle, and some people think it's a reality. Some people think it's a carefully constructed media personality, just like Rishi Sunak. Let's not forget who loves his photographer because he's always on social media taking pictures. But just today, we saw the Times break, the complaint was from 2018, but we saw them break a news story that essentially said that Meghan Markle had bullied or through bullying had driven two of her personal aides out of the palace. This was a claim made by Justin Knopf, I believe his name is, who was then the Sussex's communications secretary. He said that her behavior meant that two different people who worked for her had to go away. That news story in the Times was since had a response from Meghan Markle's lawyers and the palace. The palace made it clear that they don't stand for bullying. They're gonna look at the story and make the necessary changes. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, says that actually it's not true. And this is part of a calculated and coordinated smear campaign that the mainstream media essentially is on here in the UK. Now, Matt, when you hear those three different things, essentially three different stories, where do you think the truth lies?
Like everything, is somewhere in between, really. While you cannot discount stories like that from people that would have no reason to lie about something that severe, it's interesting to see the timing of this story, because if it happened so long ago, why wasn't it reported back then? And if so, why is it being dragged up at this specific time? But then you could say the same about why the US TV network has chosen to air the Oprah interview around the same time that Prince Philip is severely ill. There's always a plan behind whatever every side is doing, because obviously Meghan and Harry want to be painted in the best light possible, but there seems to be a narrative forming among the papers that people like Aaron seem to be reading that build Meghan up as a monster, I suppose, and as somebody that has manipulated Harry. And while I don't know too much about that to comment on, I mean, as Aaron says, we don't know these people personally. By painting this caricature, it inspires people to hate this person that they don't know, and in reality, they might not be this evil schemer that they're being painted to be. But I think that's a reflection on our media and our journalism. I think we need to do better as well in the way that we report stories. We need to be more balanced. We need to approach it without bias, and I know it's hard, but go on, Aaron. On that note, on the note of bias, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's lots of sub stories coming from you guys tonight. I've noticed that, and this is the issue that I have, right? As much as I believe in what you're saying, man, I agree with what you're saying to an extent. But at the same time, we cannot use a sense of like, how do I explain it? As much as she may not have done those things, she may have also actually have done those things. And we can't use the idea of media persecution and weaponize that to protect her image. We can't say because the smear campaign might be going against her that she's not exempt, that she's exempt from criticism and scrutiny. We can't protect her from that. It's as simple as that. You can't say because this might happen.
I got you, Aaron. I just because I see him nodding.
Yeah, because I think we have to take everything now with a pinch of salt at this point. Like as much as these bullying claims could be true. It could also be exaggerated. It could be exaggerated. It could be under exaggerated. You never know. And I think we now live in a time where we don't trust our news because, you know, our trust of our news is so low right now. We don't know if what they're saying is 100% true right now. Like, you know, the fact that this story happened in 2018 and now they're bringing it up now, they have their agenda. They have all these things they want to spiral up. And I think we have to take a lot of these things with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying these allegations might be true, they might not be true. But I just think, you know, everyone in this room and everyone who is listening right now probably needs to take everything with a pinch of salt at this point. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, so Siobhan, it looks like, you know, you're not interested in this pinch of salt idea, because I can just feel your energy from the camera. What are your thoughts on what so Hamish and Aaron have said? Okay, you've got so much energy. You've now frozen.
Yes.
You've frozen. So we'll come back to you. But Basayo, in the meantime, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, there's so much more you can really argue in it. I think at the end of the day, it's a case of the reason why people feel like they like Meg isn't because of what she's done as a good person. It's more about saying they think she's been unfairly treated by the press. Everyone else, no one knows. No one's claiming that Meg is a good person. What we're trying to say is that is independent of how we feel like she's treated by the press. So if we are skeptical about how they're treating her, we're going to link it to maybe they have an ulterior motive. So I think the reasons that you think we're defending her or we're maybe apathetic or we're empathetic even isn't the same reasons why the people are attacking her. So I think you can't use the argument. It just seems a bit like, I wouldn't say cognitive dissonance, but I think it's a case of you have to just admit you don't like Meg and therefore you feel like the attack against her is okay. But if you try and rationalize it, that's when it kind of falls short of logic. That's the only thing I'm trying to say. So you cannot like her, you're entitled to, but then do you know what I mean? The other reasons you're giving, it's almost irrelevant. I don't really understand where you're going with that one.
Right. So I want to press in a bit on this timing issue because, you know, someone said it before, and I think it was Hamish, you said it right at the beginning. We'll come back to you, Siobhan, in a minute. You spoke about the timing's off, and this is something that Jeremy Vine on The Right Stuff, which is just such an interesting name for a program, was discussing this morning, which is, should they cancel the program? You've already said it, that, you know, ITV have said that they're going to cancel the program if Prince Philip's condition worsens, the Duke of Edinburgh. Now, they've acquired the program and exclusive rights, I think, for showing it in the UK, GMT 1 a.m. if it does show, for £1 million. But they've said that they're going to drop it if things get worse. Now, it's interesting to me when we look at the media landscape more generally, because folks who said that, you know, it's odd timing are also the folks who broke the story about the bullying that happened to Meghan, knowing that she would retaliate and it would further drag on the discussion. So part of me thinks, hold on, do you want to kill the story and you know and call truce and just focus on focus on Prince Philip, or do you want to have this out in public, which is what it seems like folks like Piers Morgan and all the other commentators are interested in doing? So I guess my next question is, if we do see the condition of Prince Philip worsen, do you and something, you know, untoward happens, do you think this interview should be cancelled, shouldn't be aired, and you know, and we should kind of revisit this topic at a different time? Siobhan, what are your thoughts?
Go forth and prosper. Go forth and prosper with this interview. I mean, truth be told, it's not their fault that he is dying. I mean, for God's sake. I mean, I just don't think that they should redo this interview. I really, really don't, because it's not their fault of what happened to them. They have something to say. I mean, why?
Right. Hey, Hamish. Go ahead.
Butthole, or not to, but not to be unsympathetic about it. But why should they have to wait for this interview, especially when it wasn't their fault? The dude is about to die. Right. Got that. Hamish, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Siobhan is making good points there. I understand it's not their fault, and you know, I'm not saying I blame them. But at the same time, I would take the step back and think, if I put this, does this interview need to be published right now? I would take this step back and think, whoever my family member is almost dying, I think we should more of the focus on that should be on him. That's why I would take the step back personally. However, I understand where Siobhan's saying it's like it's not their fault. They're in this situation. It's not their fault, essentially. But I would say for Harry and Meghan, I would personally take a step back. That's what I would have done personally. But I understand other people's points of view. They wouldn't do that. That's the thing. But I understand where Siobhan is coming from.
I get that. I get that, but at the same time, it's just not their decision either. Like I said, I mean, you have Oprah's team, it's whether or not they want to do that as well. That's not just their sole decision on whether or not. No, Oprah, no production team, Harpo Industries. We're gonna. I don't think that this is right. If Oprah wants to get it done and wants to air it, guess what? It's going to be aired, whether that they want to or not. So it's just not their sole decision.
But hang on a second. I thought that's what they wanted in the first place. I thought that's what I wanted in the first place, to be able to be able to monetize their status and to be able to control when things are published, when they're not. We talk about how it's not their fault that Prince, what's his name, is dying. Nothing ever seems to be their fault. Nothing ever seems to be their fault.
So are they responsible for his situation? Is that what we're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying they're responsible partly for the timing of it. Do you really think it's a wise idea when your grandfather is dying to put out an interview that centers around you? Is that the right time?
And do you know what it is? I definitely hear that. I would say that in the sense of family ties, because we're going to say they're all human, right? Then I do think, like, at the end of the day, there's a family argument where I would accept that if they didn't want to bring it out, then it makes sense because that's your family at the end of the day before all of this stuff. However, we all come from, I don't know everyone's family situations, but I'm sure there's certain family members in your head you can't defend. And you're like, you know what, whatever happens in my family, that sounds like a you problem. So again, let's not make it look like to say that people don't come from certain families where it's like, you know what, you pushed me to the point where when I was attacked, where were you? Not necessarily Prince Philip, he probably was in the same condition when they were arguing in the first place, but the system around him, were they there to support them? So again, just because they haven't chosen that route doesn't mean they haven't thought of that route. And I think we have to be careful of going, actually, I can think of things, weigh them up and still choose a different path. And that's okay. But are we upset that they didn't choose the path that we asked? That's different to saying they chose the wrong path. And that's what if you just take your situation in your family or your logic, because when people are talking about people being self-centered or they're trying to monetize off it, number one, so they shouldn't work for money, just like the rest of us are doing. Number two, look at this generation of Instagram, everything. Everyone's trying to make a come up. Everyone's trying to make a name for themselves. Everyone's trying to take photos. But now all of a sudden they're the self-centered ones. But they're the closest to our generation than any of the monarchies. So you think they won't be reflected in it. So I think sometimes it's a bit of a case of like, they're not doing anything we're not doing. And at the same time, you think they shouldn't eat food. They shouldn't look after their kids because of what? Because they're not connected to the royal family. So I don't really understand the logic. I really don't really, and this is not me a fan of them. I'm not trying to say that I'm supporting them. I don't care enough. Like I really am not best sticker. I feel like at the end of the day, listen, they're not affected by recession. They're not affected by all the things that we're affected by day to day. So I'm not bothered. But however, the logic still stands. These are human beings who are going to make human mistakes that we all do, just on a bigger platform with more press and a greater incentive. We just don't have the incentives or the access to make those mistakes or those decisions. And I genuinely feel like that's what we're dealing with.
Exactly.
Now, hold on 1 minute. I want to consider some of the comments that people are making. And folks, thank you so much for commenting. I can see your comments. I'm trying to read them whilst the conversation's going on. But let's just go through some of them. Kemi Ogunsola says that airing it can come across as insensitive, but the timing is an unfortunate coincidence. And I think obviously this is probably the case. I've read some other things on Twitter I cannot repeat on air about the coincidence, but I'm not going to go into that too much. Of course, Aaron, you're speaking about the fact that celebs aren't simple human beings. I think that point's been well labored. I see a point here from I might pronounce your name wrong because my glasses aren't on, but Kwaku Ghana says the interview will definitely be delayed because the UK has a bondage to the monarch. And this is interesting, this relationship the UK has with the monarchy, because I think it's come into play here. There is one thing to concede, and it's the fact that the mainstream media, and it's the same thing as politicians who criticize the mainstream media, but the truth is, politics in liberal democracies is always a delicate dance between the media and, say, politicians, or the media and the monarchy, because they need each other, quite frankly. In fact, if you take a good picture of Meghan Markle as a photographer, that's all you need. Like, you can retire on that money because people would pay a lot of money to get their pictures. And we know that if you watch The Crown, which Prince Harry said is actually more realistic than some of the stuff you read in the press, there are times where members of the royal family will invite the press in to take pictures, to talk about new announcements, new initiatives. So there's this back and forth that's always happened, and so this one-sided narrative that the mainstream media is just out there to hound public figures isn't true. There's a symbiotic relationship there that sometimes one try to brand the other one as exploitative, when I think really it's a two-way affair and a two-way dance. So Kwaku, I totally get what you're saying there. Femi says that Piers Morgan is still bitter from the rejection years ago. Does anyone know about this kind of thing? And Piers Morgan in the pub, and apparently he tried to make friends with Meghan, and she blew him off, and she didn't invite him to the wedding. And this is like, I don't want to talk about Piers Morgan too much, but do you think that has a part to play in all of this? The fact that Piers Morgan is just jaded and just a bit kind of personally angry?
I mean, maybe, but maybe he's just exaggerating it. Maybe, I don't know, but I know. I mean, Piers Morgan gets pissed off with anything, to be honest. So, like, you know, yeah.
Maybe it's the guy. We have one more person. I'll go through one. This is Chin Ore, who says that I think they are a little self-centered. Now, I know, Busayo, you've kind of, you know, you've said you're not a stan of anyone, but I think in this conversation, you've flown the flag for Meghan and Harry, perhaps because they are unduly treated, as you've said. But I mean, when you look at their public profile, do you think they're self-centered? Do you get that hint at all?
I mean, do I get the hint that they're self-centered? I just get the hint that, listen, no more than anyone else's at this point. I just feel like at the end of the day, if the monarchy is going to transition into a modern day institution with likability, you know, how they always try and evolve with the times, like they did with, was it Princess Margaret as well? And they do that all the time where they try and be like, you know, what's the best way to make us look like, you know, we're kind of hip and modern. It makes sense. It's just that we're very much used to the distance between us and the royal family. So we're like, if you're going to talk to us, let it be a big announcement where we have to come and walk to see you. They're saying, listen, we're also on WhatsApp. You know, I might WhatsApp you a few things. Like, I mean, like that's what they're doing. So for me, don't get me wrong. I do think at the end of the day, if it obviously, listen, I'm not a fan of like celebrities like that. So I do get 100%. I don't think it's without them trying to secure as much as the wealth and the reputation as they can. 100%. That's not the discussion, but 100%, no one's saying they're not. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that I do think the press, certain press, have targeted this woman because of her race and probably her American ties and what she did before that, as they do anyone else who isn't even of a different color. So this is not new. We're not saying Meghan is particularly new. Everyone who is the outsider of the family has been treated like this. But now with the you know, the paparazzi type of thing, that's why Diana and those coming after her have been treated a particular way because of the sources that we use to kind of attack them. That's all it is. This is not a Meghan is our saint or our idol. It's not. But we see it with the average celebrity who has nothing to contribute. It's hounded for nothing. So why would Meghan be different to that? So I just think it's not, do you know what I mean? When I do come across as flying the flag, it's more about being like, realistically, guys, if Meghan becomes the queen or the princess or the prime minister or the president, that doesn't change any of our lives in any way. So I have no stake in it. However, the logic we're using, we have to be careful, because if it goes the wrong way, you can end up killing a person. You can end up affecting these people's families. And indirectly, you can affect the way other people who look like her are treated on the ground. Because we know there's very mad people in this world who'll be like, a win against Meg is a win for the ethnic minorities, you know what I mean, to get them out or whatever. So we have to be careful, especially with the Brexit conversation and everything's happening. This is why people are, even if they are very premature or very aggressive with how they defend her, it's not really Meg. She's a symbol of bigger ills of society. And I think that's what we need to remember. That is why the defense against her isn't defense against Meg, but what she represents for everyone else.
And I think that's actually a good place to go as we kind of, you know, reach the peroration, if you like, of this discussion is, you know, how do you see this playing out? I mean, a lot of people were celebrating, as you said, when Meghan joined the royal family, it was a big win for quote unquote the BME community. You know, my mum, who's long been a royalist, was like, wow, you know, the royal family's embracing, diversity and stuff like that. And also the other point you make about the royal family being kind of dragged, perhaps, or even moving skillfully to this kind of new age and being, you know, a kind of celebrity culture and being relevant and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone saw things getting quite as sour as they did, but obviously we are where we are right now. So as you watch these different stories, as you see these different moving parts, I'd love to get a thought from each of you. Like, where do you see this going? What will end up happening? Is this just another thing that will blow over? Or do you think it's going to get worse? And really to that point you make as well, Busayo, which is this idea that Meghan is really a kind of as a proxy for a much wider debate and a much wider discussion about the royal family, perhaps, and whether it's possible to be a commoner, if you like, or a ordinary person. I don't know what they call us, and marry in there. You know, we saw what happened with Diana. It's kind of, we're seeing a history almost repeating itself, because Prince Harry spoke frankly about his mental health, struggles as a result of struggles that came after him marrying Meghan. How does this all play out, folks? What happens? Take a moment to pause and reflect if you like, but I thought it would be great to get your thoughts on that. Siobhan, I know you're looking forward to the interview, but post the interview, what do you think will happen? How do you see this playing out?
Again, it's more so not necessarily Harry and Meghan for me. It's more so the bigger picture for me too. But honestly, I don't think it's ever going to be the same. Well, it all depends on what is shared in that interview. If some juicy secrets are displayed, I really do think it's going to be what is shared. I don't think it's ever going to be the same, because Harry and Meghan made their stakes in it, and it's kind of interesting to see if their grandmother dies, if the Queen dies, what direction where the next generation take that. It honestly begins with the next generation. What is William going to be in that? Because he was affected by this whole situation too. Him and his brother do not have a great relationship because of everything that has happened. So how is he going to take this next generation of the monarchy?
That is a good question.
I answer your question with a
skillfully done. This is proof that this is what journalists do. Kind of ask a question, they ask you a question back. Anyone else?
I was gonna say, I think this new generation of monarchy, I think it might be a bit problematic, because fundamentally, the monarchy has, I think, a responsibility to the public, especially the British public, and the idea of trying to monetize it is basically trying to cut off that relationship. It's basically saying, I can now pick and choose when I'm accountable, when I'm not accountable. I can pick and choose what information I release to the public. And unfortunately, there is no monarchy without the public. There is no Meghan and Harry without the public. So, like you said, Michael, before, there's a bit of a symbiotic relationship. But I don't think they can have it both ways. And I think they're trying to have it both ways, in my opinion. So it might be problematic down the road, at least. We can already see the problem starting to happen as it is.
I'll take your point. Busayo, I feel like you want to say something.
Right, I don't know. I feel like the monarchy, as far as I'm aware, there's always been dealings. You know, money's always been involved. This is not new. As I said, the tools and resources we're using now seem a bit more common. So we're like, oh my God, it's almost we're disgusted by the low levelness of their money. That's what it is. It's like the fact that not ordinary people are using the same platforms that they are. We're kind of like, what? You're rubbishing it. You're cheapening it, and that sounds like an us problem. It sounds like something that is some sort of self-hate problem, which is fine. But I would agree that I think there is a conversation to be had within the royal family about where they want to go. The new world, there's no room for monarchies. That's the truth. It's outdated. And the only reason why monarchy still exists is either if you're an oppressive regime, but the idea is that psychologically, it's to do with tradition. But they've got a very relevant modern day role that we need to kind of reconcile. But actually, if you're going to be a figurehead, then simply be one where people come and visit you, but you hold no political stake, no social, you just stay there. So that's what the issue is right now. And I think, as you said, Siobhan, with William, he's got a big decision to make as well, what he wants to do. In my opinion, I think the royal family is there on borrowed time as an institution that the British public respect in any sensible way, because we're getting younger. Or we're getting older generally, but we're much younger than institutions. So we haven't got that relationship with them as much as our parents did, or we haven't got a Diana to rally behind and be like, oh my God, she's the black sheep of the thing. It's not like that. Even Meghan and Harry, again, a lot of people don't actually buy into them. They buy into what they stand for. So once they do leave the royal family, they also have to recognize that, listen, I'm not going to protest on the street for Meghan and Harry. It ends on me maybe tweeting you. It ends on me maybe being on common sense. But guess what? It's not real support. So I think in their head, they already know as well. It's tomorrow's news will come and there'll be another scandal and it won't be them and they'll be out on the outside. So again, they need to also remember that if there is an agenda, that listen, don't trust the public, because listen, tomorrow the news will change and so will our appetite. So that's for me. I just think the future of the monarchy itself is in jeopardy. And the Queen was the last person, if you watch The Crown, she took that job serious. Like, she's risking her life. But the new gen is like, listen, I can't come and die. Do you know what I mean? So that's that.
Very good assessment, I think.
The new generation are Nigerians at heart, boy. That's what it is.
Sorry. They did do a lot of tours in Africa, so I don't know if that had a part. I'm joking. I shouldn't say that. That's a dangerous life.
I said the relationship was a tour. It was colonialism.
There's a dangerous path that I'm going to back away from. I'm going to pass the baton to Matt.
I think we're going to continue to make martyrs of these people. We're going to continue to make martyrs of celebrities because it's what we seem to do as a society. And it's, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, which probably means that this situation is going to get exacerbated, which is a real shame because these people probably shouldn't even be in this situation in the first place. I don't really believe in the royal family as an institution. I think that the amount that they bring in tourism, as people who starkly defend them like to put it, doesn't equate to the amount that they have stored in terms of wealth and wealth in terms of their power. And personally, I think that once we stop valuing these institutions so much and start valuing each other more, that we can build systems that actually work for us. And that starts with this autocracy being torn down. And if this is the first step towards it, then more power to Harry and Meghan. If it's just a PR stunt, then that's the game, and that's fair play to them.
You sound like you're about to kind of launch your political campaign, Matt.
I'm coming.
That was so beautifully said. We gotta care less about these kind of larger than life figures and care more about each other. And that's why I'm in. That's what I thought you were going to end with, but such a powerful statement and sentiment because it is something that I think it's one of the lessons, if you like, that I think COVID's even teaching us is the importance of things like that. Hamish, I mean, you have the last word on this before we close and get some kind of instructions. What happens next? What I mean, the interview after that.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I wish I had a glass ball to kind of predict the future, but I think the royal family will be an interesting one. I don't know if it will exist in decades to come because it could. I think it is slightly deteriorating slightly. But I think what it will be interesting if there is no royal family in our country, what it will mean for our political scene, because the royal family is important in terms of the political scene, in terms of when you pass a law, you need the Queen to sign it off, essentially. If you get rid of the Queen or you get rid of the royal family, what happens to our political system? I do agree to the extent like royal family is dodgy with its history. I absolutely agree. It's very, very dodgy. But once you take away the royal family, what happens to our political system? Because we are founded on that. What happens then? I think that's the bigger question we need to ask ourselves.
Absolutely.
The revolution.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe revolution,
Perhaps, but in the interest of balance, there's also measured ways to achieve political change through incremental changes over a long period of time.
That's correct.
I ain't got that kind of time. Don't borrow time.
Sponsored ad.
Everyone wants revolution until they're queuing for bread. This is what I always say. So let's slow down. But folks, I want to thank you all for being part of this discussion because, I mean, how amazing was that to get all those different perspectives about what's happening with this particular story. There is no doubt that it's going to keep on evolving. It's interesting to note that for a lot of millennials and Gen Zers, their relationship with the monarchy started with Meghan Markle when she married into the royal family, and in an odd way will probably end with Meghan Markle as she leaves the royal family. Very short tenure, of course, but it's an evolving story. There's still moving parts. We expect over the next few days or so to find out what's going to be happening with the Duke of Edinburgh, to find out if this interview will in fact air, and to find out what the palace will do after it's investigated this claim of bullying again that we'll remember was reported in 2018. But we'll be following it. And if you're interested in this story and others like it, you can go to tcsnetwork.co.uk, where no doubt next week we'll have coverage of this very story.